how do you guys kind of envision what building beyond BIM means?
So I believe that BIM centers around information or information modeling, which is already a step up from what the industry was engulfed in doing. But BIM for me doesn't necessarily think about the process of constructing the building, right? And that can be by the use of manufactured content that exists in real life. It can be to create a constructible model that allows me to make sure that I have no clashes when I'm installing the material, and therefore also no changes later on, which are going to be costly for everyone involved in the project.
Building beyond BIM to me actually goes far outreaching into the actual operations and maintenance of the building. Beyond BIM is actually beyond the lifetime of the actual project that we're constructing.
Can I riff on that for a second? Because I think that's a great point. So today, if you took a facility, the average lifespan of a facility is somewhere around 32, 33 years. And if that was 100% of the cost, 20% of the total cost over those 33 years is in the construction phase of the project. 80% is in operations and maintenance of the facility. So from a facility owner perspective, going beyond BIM means making data and not drawings, right? Data actionable during the entire life cycle of the facility.
For me, coming from an urban planning and urban design background, building beyond BIM actually means BIM beyond the building and in the city, right? And we're already talking about city information modeling right now, which is, what would happen if we take that to the next level? What would happen if that scaled up? And you had BIM not only in buildings, but also in infrastructure. Like, how do we leverage all the data that existing buildings have to look the impact at a bigger picture?
So how would you all address the concern that robots and artificial intelligence are actually taking jobs?
That's a really good. There's a big mandate in our region to implement AI as part of technology in various industries. One of the big concerns, of course, is AI going to take my job? And I think in certain circumstances, yes, that will occur. It's also a very interesting topic of how we can start to work more efficiently in the industry as well.
I think what you're seeing becomes an evolution of skill sets as well. Like when robotic total stations first came onto the job site, there's a lot of resistance there that they're replacing layout crews and these guys were going to be losing their jobs. And what ended up happening is that contractors started seeing that, now I can take my group of 5 guys, and instead of having them on like 1 or 2 projects, each person could be an individual on a project. So now I can go against and get more work, go on more projects, and my productivity is actually increasing. And so the skill sets for those guys were actually enhanced to where now they had the skills to use this emerging technology that no one else had in the industry. And now suddenly they became very valuable employees and resources. And so, once everyone started seeing that, then there was less resistance and there was an embracing of the technology to come in and help to improve the overall process.
So let's talk a little bit about labor shortages and retaining talent in our industry. What are some things the industry could do to help solve the labor shortage in your region?
Education is definitely a big one. We touched base on it a little bit earlier. You're seeing like Trimble is doing more of an extension into the universities and kind of get the generations that are coming out to the job sites already prepared. So when they're coming out of school and they get on the job, they already have an idea of what is being used in practice.
I live in a region where it's highly expatriated. So we have a lot of skilled engineers, but when the economy changes, they tend to leave the region and go back either to their home country or they may travel to another region. And the big challenge is the local workforce are the locals are the ones that need to come up and replace those skilled engineers. And that's a crucial part to enabling that to happen.
Diversity. I think there's a huge talent pool that the industry is not tapping into. And especially with all the transformations and the tools that we have today, I think it's a very interesting field to work in, but it also presents a lot of opportunities for people from any demographic and get more people from different backgrounds. And one background specifically is women as well into the industry.
Couldn't agree more. And I mean, I would say for architecture and design, there's definitely not a labor shortage. We have a lot of architects. I think the problem lies in diversity of skills. Software can do, for example, a lot in make architecture and building construction compelling to other industries, but also look out from other industries to bring in people into the construction.
What do you guys see as kind of the future of mixed reality? Right now we can see a 3D model overlaid on the actual environment, kind of interact with the model. What's the next step?
One of the things that I think it'll be is, it becomes kind of the single source of information. We're talking about having all this content put up into the cloud. When I was in construction, one of the things that we did with the contractor I worked with is that we wanted everybody to have access to the data on the job site. And so we had plan room computers on every single floor of the project. So we had a job box that had a computer that had an internet connection. All the documentation was there on the floor. So anybody on the floor, if they had a question about the project, could go to that location. They could look at the coordination models, they could pull up RFIs, they could pull up any documentation and try to find that answer to their question.
Well, from an MEP designer, but also contractor perspective, if we think that these days buildings are getting more and more complex, one of the things I want to avoid most is creating myself additional cost by creating problems with the installation. I will essentially improve the quality of my work to avoid such issues.
I think mixed reality will completely redefine the way that we access information. It already does. And actually, if you see it like on a really big timeline, what mixed reality is doing is bringing the architect, the designer, back to where we started, where we didn't have any pen and paper. We only had the physical world, and we design and build directly in the physical world.
You've heard a lot about the constructible process and the 3 C's, connected, constructible, and content enabled. How do each of the 3 C's apply to your specialty trade?
I'll take connected.
Okay.
Because that is a wish from an owner perspective, is to be more connected. The owner's challenge is lack of transparency and an inability to spot problems before they make a cost and schedule impact. So the owner is seeking a connectedness.
From a contractor standpoint, Constructible is huge, because then you've got the ability to trust the documentation that you have and the models that you have that you can build from that information. So the more accurate that is, the less risk that you have going out into the job site.
I guess from an architect's perspective, and that goes back to our conversation, both like all 3 C's contribute to a designer having control of the idea, of the vision, so that they know when they design, both with constructibility, content enabled, and connectivity, that their design has all those elements that will make it constructible in the end, and it will not be altered by the other stakeholders because it was weak in the first place.
From an MEP perspective, during design stages, the C for connected is the most important, right? As we talked about between the 3 of us, to have this collaboration. But there's also connectedness from the office to the site, so that, for example, I can use the robots to create a field layout of the design that I have on the computer.
From a structural engineer, I'm in the business to make money. And the more time I have to go back to designed contracts that I've wrapped up in answering RFIs that I'm not going to be paid for, it takes away my time from working on other contracts. So Constructible to me is a key to make my company more efficient and cost effective.
Great. Thank you all for everything.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's a wrap.